Well, good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. We're also on 102.3 FM. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Truth Social. You can find us on Facebook. The most important thing is that you find us. I believe we've got a lot of great hosts. The great thing about this station is that we actually have free speech. I mean, the boss doesn't want us to go all liberal. But aside from that, and, you can't use bad language, but really, if you believe in something at this station, you can actually say what you believe. That is not the case with all talk stations. We've got some local ones that they have the boss has a little more control about what you say. And I feel very thankful to be here. Now, as we kind of go along, and as I look at all the news, it's really easy to go, oh my God, I just want to shut off from the world. I don't recognize what's going on. The left has decided that it should be black versus white. Parents versus perverts. Of course, they wouldn't say perverts. Normal versus LGBTQ. Freedom versus the deep state. MAGA versus the globalist Marxists. By the way, some of those are Republicans. Did you see the leader in the Senate? The minority leader? The guy that's a Republican, the guy that looks like a turtle? He took money from Sam Bankman-Fried. Mitch McConnell took money from Sam Bankman-Fried, who was just convicted on 7 counts of defrauding people with his digital currency. So, I don't know. Can you trust the turtle? I think that MAGA needs to take over the party, and that is starting to happen. So that's one of my moments of hope, but I'm not there yet. I believe the culture is shifting. I'm going to tell one story about that, and then I'm going to play a song that I think kind of exemplifies how I feel. I spent quite a bit of time at our big Fresno fair here in Fresno, California, at the Republican table, just talking to people. We had a great big cardboard cutout of Donald J. Trump. And people, a few of them didn't like him, and we got a little bit of grief. But by and large, people were thrilled that we were there. They took pictures with Donald Trump. They wanted to engage us. Now, obviously, some people didn't like us, and some people just didn't want anything to do with politics. They were there to enjoy the fair. That's okay. But compared to spending time at that same table in years past, there was so much more hope, so much more enthusiasm. And it wasn't just who you'd think it would be. It's not all people that happen to look like me, white and bald, old. It was also women, young people, minorities, and minorities of all different stripes. It was really wonderful to have these great conversations. We didn't always agree on everything, but we largely agreed. We realized that the world is turned upside down. Speaking of world turned upside down, I'm going to go ahead and play a song called Am I the Only One by Aaron Lewis. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I think it kind of exemplifies kind of the mood of the country, or at least half of the country is like, are you crazy? What's going on? Let's play a clip. Like you talked about, my world had been turned upside down. And I felt like, in a lot of ways, I was alone. I probably played that song 10 times, which is quite a number of times when you're just driving along back to back. And it was kind of sad for my country. I felt like, wow, we're facing absolute crazy people. The crazies have taken over. Gavin has taken my freedom, and my neighbors and friends largely have just decided to take it. I wasn't on the radio yet. I wasn't leading a group yet. I had gotten out on Blackstone and Shaw with the beginning of COVID, and so that's here in Fresno for Fresno, California, for those that are listening out of state. And I had a sign, and I'm trying to find allies. But this wasn't very far into COVID when this song first played. I saw it as, I can't be the only one. This was a call to action. If this song spoke to me in this way, I bet you it spoke to a lot of people this way, where they went, wow, yeah. Now, here's the thing. When you hear all this negative news, when there's this constant assault from the media, and I believe the media is complicit with the social Marxists because they agree with them largely, and I believe that a huge portion of the Democratic Party are actually socialist, Marxist, or cultural Marxists. They just won't admit it. What they want is equity. Sounds good, doesn't it? What I want is equality of opportunity, meaning you have to compete. If you were poor, do I think that, and this shouldn't be based on race, if you're poor, could we set up programs that helped people that are poor, that gave them a hand up so that they joined the middle class, and maybe after they joined the middle class, maybe they got to where they could make real money? Awesome. Love that idea. But I don't believe it should be based on race. It should be based on need so that there's a hand up. And what the left wants is enough power that we have equality of results. Equity, that's what it is. It's equality of results. It is as anti-American as it gets. Because how do you strive for the American dream? If everybody's supposed to have equal results, oh, but by the way, the elite liberals, they've already found their power and their money, so it won't quite apply to them. That's the dirty little secret. They always say, oh, yes, well, and then they point to countries around the world of, oh, well, the wrong people were in charge in Venezuela. Mao was just the wrong guy, and that's why millions and millions of Chinese died. Or Stalin was just the wrong guy. Communism's a good idea. It fails everywhere it works. Oh, wait, it never works. It fails everywhere it exists. And it doesn't matter who's in charge over that number of ethnic groups, over that number of people. If it worked, if it was a good idea, then there would be some points of hope, points of light that they could point to. And what they tend to do is go, no, what I mean is the Scandinavian countries. Those are the socialists. That's what we want. Okay, well, they have a pretty good economy. They don't have much diversity. They don't have the melting pot we have here. Essentially, they've, in recent years, imported quite a few people from North Africa that are almost always Islamic. And then they've got their white ethnic population, not much variety. Here's some dirty little secrets about all of those Nordic countries. Are you aware that it's easier to start a business there than most of the places in the world? Well, that's not very socialist. Yes, they pay a huge amount of taxes and they have a large welfare system. But at the same time, they're absolutely capitalist countries. They're not true socialism. The government doesn't control those things. So it's easy to start a business. It's hard to make a huge success of that business because the government's taken like 50%. Think about that, folks. That's what the Democrats are telling us we should look towards. We should look towards a government taking 50% of what you earn. Now, because they're small countries, because they're not so diverse, because there's not a language barrier typically in those countries, and because they, just like the U.S., have a real work ethic in those Scandinavian countries, those are pretty successful countries. So I'm not bagging on them. I'm just pointing out that they're not the socialist paradise. They actually have a little different take on how they approach capitalism than the U.S., but they don't have much crony capitalism like we do. In other words, corporations haven't bought off the government. Joe Biden, or other governments haven't been able to buy off the Scandinavian countries like Joe Biden. So kind of interesting. We have a republic. Can we keep it? Well, that was asked at the founding of our nation. I think we're just at a crossroads where we have to ask that question again. We have a republic. Can we keep it? By the way, that's Benjamin Franklin, one of those old white dudes that the left tries to tell you is evil. I think they were a man that, just like every man, every woman, were flawed. That seems to go with humanity. We're flawed. So we're not perfect. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that good ideas and principles can't happen. This country was founded on principles and an ideal. Did we live up to that ideal initially? No. But because it was an ideal, and because your rights were granted by God, the government couldn't take them away. Then our government was smart enough to do something brilliant. This should give everyone hope. They gave us the First Amendment. Then they gave us an amendment to protect our First Amendment and all of the other rights. And then we get into the 9th and 10th Amendment, where all rights that are not granted to the government essentially either fall to the state or fall to the people. We set up a system that, let's face it, it's great. I don't believe all cultures are equal. All cultures probably have some good things about them, but I don't believe all cultures are equal. I believe our combination of representative republic and capitalism has created more opportunity. If we were really the racist, evil, bigoted country that they're claiming, why would everybody be running across our open border? They're all fighting to get here because they want that same opportunity. They want to be able to live the American dream, to be able to create their own destiny. And guess what? In those socialist countries, true socialist countries, you don't get to do that. You're either a little elite or you're a peon. And the only way to work it up is and move into that elite group is to be part of the government. There's no other path forward. Do we want that? I don't want that. Our border in the last year, there's been something like 600,000 gotaways. That's just the people that, like, they didn't check in. They just snuck across our border. We just recently had a man from Senegal, that's Western Africa, small country, who's a terrorist. And he got checked in by the Biden administration, and then he got let go, and then they had to hunt him down. That's a real problem. What about those 600,000 gotaways that we know of, that they're admitting to? I'm betting we got a real problem there. Now, there's a good and a bad to that. Look, we have a corrupt system led by a corrupt man named Joe Biden at the top that pretends like our border's closed. So all of these immigrants, and I'm going to call them illegal immigrants because they're not respecting our laws, they've got to go somewhere. They got to live somewhere. And I think it's perfectly appropriate that they get sent to sanctuary cities that refuse to help ICE. ICE is the law enforcement organization that is responsible for getting rid of people that shouldn't be here, felons, things like that. And those sanctuary cities, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, largely they won't work with ICE. They won't keep somebody in prison that's been picked up, even if it's just jail. They won't keep somebody in jail long enough for ICE to come get them. They won't work with them at all. Well, now these illegal immigrants keep getting sent to these sanctuary cities. And the constituents are like, wait a minute. You're giving how much a month? You're paying off these people that came here illegally, but you weren't willing to help the people of this city for years and years. And I could point to particularly in Chicago, where they've just had enough. You look at the African American community in Chicago, and they're yelling and screaming at those same people that they voted for more than 50 years. You can't blame Chicago's problems on a Republican. They haven't even had a Republican governor in years. Now, you get outside of Chicago, and there are Republicans within the state of Illinois, but within the state, it's a problem. And if you always do the same thing and expect the same results, well, what do you get? But the good part of this is they're mad as HE double hockey sticks, and they're letting their politicians know. I just hope that turns into them voting for something different. Even if it's an independent. I prefer a Republican, but even an independent. You need to do something different if you live in one of those sanctuary cities. Another positive, as much of a horrible mess as the conflict that's going on, I truly feel for the people of Israel when Hamas, the evil terrorist organization, snuck across the border and murdered, I think it's a little over 2,000 people that were innocents, and took, I think there's about 250 hostages. So notice I said Hamas is evil. Don't know that Israel's always blameless, but they're responding to completely evil people. Do they sometimes maybe go for it a little more than they should? I understand why they would, because if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't want to stop until that evil organization, Hamas, was taken out. Because they're just, you know, you have to believe when terrorists say they're going to take you out, that they're going to come back, that this is just the first wave, and there'll be another wave and another wave. And leadership of Hamas has very recently said all that. Well, you got to take them out then. If you're not willing to behave like humans, you got to take them out. And I want to point out that there are 7 Arab-born Israeli citizen members in parliament. Oh, wait, and they're also Muslim. They're not Jewish. So the Jews actually can work with the other side. Now, I don't want to get into this one completely. I just want to point out that the good side of this is because so many Democrats have lost their ever-loving minds, they're not reasonable, particularly on college campuses, so the younger Democrats, the most vocal of them, the Democratic Party is now divided. So the young people are standing with the terrorists and saying, yes, we need to completely wipe out the one Jewish country in the world, even though there's about 50, I think there's 54, but it's about 50 Islamic nations. We need to wipe it out, completely get rid of it. And then you've got an older guard that is largely saying, no, we have to support Israel. Well, that's an opportunity for anybody that is a reasonable person, and you're a conservative or a Republican. You need to be talking to that Democrat that always seemed to vote for the Democrats. Wait, Democrats, half of them are okay with siding with evil terrorists. Maybe there's an opportunity. We should go out and be speaking to those people. That's a moment of hope if we turn it into an opportunity. We're going to go ahead and take a break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. To all my social media folks, if you have a story of hope, because we spend all of this time essentially complaining, focusing on the negative. If you watch the news, almost every story is negative. If you had a story of hope, go ahead and put it in the Facebook notes, or you can leave a comment. You can do the same thing on Truth Social. You can do the same thing on Twitter. You can do the same thing on Rumble. You can do the same thing on YouTube. So you could also, if you like this story, if you like how I'm approaching this, you could share. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Well, welcome, folks. I'm trying to focus a little more on, instead of seeing all of these problems as just a reason to shut down, I see them as opportunities. One of the big places where I see an opportunity is the parallel economy. A group or a corporation called Public Square just went public, just went onto the New York Stock Exchange to some fanfare. It was while Jim Cramer, the loudmouth leftist, was on, and he was kind of pissed because they all started singing the American anthem. And it was getting in the way of his show because it was so loud. So it's nice to know that some of the people on the New York Stock Exchange are patriotic. I don't know that, I question whether Jim Cramer is, but maybe. I don't know him personally. I just know that he delights in being a loudmouth and a jerk. And if it gets back to him, it's okay. I'm good with that. I'll stand by that. Because I can come up with oodles and oodles of him being a loud, obnoxious, kind of not necessarily ignorant, but loud, obnoxious, super opinionated. I'm not generally loud. I'm usually calm and just tell you what I think. Am I opinionated? Yep. Do some people think I'm a jerk? Yep, I can live with that. Not everybody likes me. So, Public Square went public, or went on to the New York Stock Exchange, and the CEO was smart enough to keep controlling interest, even though they're going to sell a large number of stocks. Because what has happened is people like Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock, they buy stock in lots of companies. And in many cases, they'll take a controlling interest. Well, Larry Fink is all about being woke. He's one of the richest men in the world, and he's a woke leftist. You know, he was all about shoving DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, cultural Marxism, down our throats. Now, he's kind of backed off on this, not because I believe that he's backed off, but because he was losing the war, so the left will rebrand this, call it something else, and approach it from a different angle. But I don't think he's backed off for a second. I don't trust the man even a tiny bit. Nonetheless, parallel economy. So now you've got places where you can go buy stuff from people that actually believe in your values, don't hate you, think that America is a good thing, think that patriotism doesn't equal racism and intolerance, but they see the great opportunity here and they want to share that opportunity with everybody. So even if you're not online, are there local businesses you could support? You know, people that you know that believe in the First Amendment, believe in the Second Amendment, believe in the Constitution, believe in the rule of law and how it should be applied equally. Because right now there's a lot of nonsense going on. Number one, the one that comes to everybody's mind is everything that's going on with Trump. Things that typically would not even, they wouldn't, if it was a leftist or a Democrat that had exactly these same problems, they'd never be charged. We'd never hear another word about it. They'll just sweep it right under the rug. Instead, they've gone on a political witch hunt of Donald J. Trump, and that's just wrong. But what you realize is if they can take him down, they can take all of us down. Now, the good news in that is that the more they indict Trump, the more they make this an issue, the more likely it is that he'll be elected president, because his poll numbers keep going up because people are like, this is nonsense. Now, if they can get Trump, they can get whoever they want. So you should see this as both a call to action and an opportunity. You know, getting back to that idea of there are alternatives to Nike or Adidas or Target or Hallmark, frankly. And by Hallmark, I don't mean like the ornaments. I mean like the horrible, sappy love stories that are on Hallmark that have gone all woke. They've decided that they needed to be including LGBTQ. It's 3% of the population on the outside. And they've decided that, no, it needs to be shoved down your throat because that's the right thing to do. Well, guess what? A whole bunch of their leading stars have left. The women that played the love interest in those stories, they've left. The CEO now is on a timeline. She's going to finish the rest of the year, but then she's out and they're hiring somebody else. And they fired their diversity, equity, and inclusion employee. So there's an opportunity. Bud Light was the eye opener. People went, oh, really? I'm fratty. I'm out of touch. And you have somebody that is pretending to be a woman, acting like a little girl. And I'm supposed to go, oh, goody. No, I don't think so. People are like, I don't have time for this. This is ridiculous. Even UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, often thought of as one of the bastions, one of the few sports where it was conservative. Well, Dana White, he is the CEO of UFC, decided that he needed to partner with Bud Light. Now, think about that. He decided he needed to, so Dana White clearly has a price because he does seem to be a conservative, but he has a price. Hope it was a pretty high price, Dana. Because there's a lot of people that have had enough. UFC's numbers have been down in the last 2 shows since he's announced that. Now, Bud Light could still decide that it doesn't want to play politics and behave like, I don't know, like a company should. Like, oh, we need to bring the best product at the best price to our customers and serve them. But all of these woke companies that I mentioned, that doesn't seem to be their priority. Their priority seems to be that, well, we need to tell you how to think, what to do. It's almost as if they think they're part of the media that seems to tell us what to think, how to behave. Well, the good news and shifting to a different segment of the good news is the mainstream media is dying. I see that as an amazing opportunity. That's part of why I have stuck with this. Do I think I'm ever going to be a huge voice? Yeah, probably not. I have this opportunity where I can reach hundreds of people, sometimes thousands. Say what I think. Speak a message that I believe in. You're going to get it from me straight, whether you like it or not. You could always tune in. You could always tune out. Free country. So, absolutely amazing opportunity that mainstream media is dying. CNN just had to move out of their big flagship building back to their old building and fire a bunch of employees because they just had their lowest quarter since the founding of the company in their Nielsen ratings. That's cool. Because CNN, fake news, they've been lying to their viewers on a regular basis. They show a tiny portion of the picture. Now they're on 24/7. It should be more than a tiny portion of the picture. But that seems to be all they want to show. And that tiny portion is always left. As soon as they didn't have Trump, they didn't have anything. Their ratings dropped off a cliff. MSNBC, not doing quite as bad, but also not good. You know, you've got Mad Cow on there and a few other ridiculous hosts that they're all about a narrative, and they don't tell you they're about a narrative. They're like, I'm fair. This is the news. Well, people aren't buying that anymore. At least I tell you, this is my opinion. I'm coming from the right. I'm a conservative. No games. No trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Print media, same thing's happening. New York Times, they've had to fire a bunch of people. Washington Post just had to fire a whole bunch of people. The media organization called Disney. Oh, wait, it's supposed to be entertainment. But they've decided they're a media organization that is going to shove they're woke down your throat. They're down. Attendance in their theme parks is down. That's a great thing. Their online streaming service, it's bleeding customers. That's a great thing. Their profits from movies, down. Lowest level since 2014 as far as the value of their stock. Well, if you want to go woke, you should go broke. Well, I see this as a positive. Instead of a negative, this means that the 50% of the population that voted for Donald J. Trump, or at least it's not quite that simple. It's closer to 25% voted for Biden, 25% voted for Trump, because half the people don't vote. But the people that did choose to vote, they represent billions of dollars on both sides. And if companies want to mess with traditional American values, they should pay the price. We have alternatives now. That's a great thing. That's a moment of hope. You know, MAGA has recently taken over the Republican Party. Trump had strong inroads, and there's a lot of MAGA people, but we didn't control the House. We had Kevin McCarthy, who went out of his way to fund non-MAGA candidates. He spent something like $6 million funding candidates, funneling money to candidates that were not nearly as conservative. So the fact that McCarthy, even though he's my congressman, is no longer speaker. And it's a little too bad that it took 3 weeks and multiple votes to get a new speaker. But I'm thrilled with Mike Johnson. Christian man, conservative, right on issues. The left is having a meltdown. That's part of what makes me go, oh, must be a good guy. Some election wins, and I hope there's more today. If you're in Kentucky and you're listening from Kentucky, get your butt to the polls. If you're in Mississippi, go vote for governor, get to the polls. If you're in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin needs your support. He needs to have more people elected to the House and Senate there in Virginia. Get your butt to the polls if you're not there yet. And if you have a friend that hasn't gone and voted, drag him along with him. It's not illegal to say, I'll buy you dinner if we go vote, as long as you don't tell them how to vote. You don't buy their vote, but you can say, let's go out to dinner. I'll buy dinner as long as you'll go and vote. Now, make sure you pick somebody that largely agrees with your values, or it might not work out so well. Nonetheless, we just had a huge win in Louisiana. So we've got the new Speaker of the House from Louisiana. We've got John Kennedy in the Senate from Louisiana. And we just got a new great governor that won in a landslide that's a Republican in Louisiana. Moments of hope. That's a big deal. One of the other things that I consider to be a huge deal is the rise of Republican minorities. Now, I think this is happening through, especially with the inner city, it's happening through essentially inner city culture, which I would say rap music is the primary type of music they listen to, though I am sure they listen to some of everything. I've been in downtown LA and heard somebody blasting away country music, which just made me laugh. And their skin color was different than mine. Doesn't matter which one. It made me laugh. So they listen to some of everything, but I think predominantly when I'm in any inner city place, they listen to rap music. And you've got lots and lots of conservative messaged or conservative themed, or at least freedom themed rappers. The Marine rapper, Forgiato Blow, Bryson Gray, Tom McDonald, Adam Calhoun. There's many more. Burden. The idea is that they're through culture, through music, So culture is very much affected by movies, music, sometimes art. We're being driven towards a more conservative message. And the fact that minorities are now coming on board, they're actively going, I'm for Trump. At least I know that Trump isn't deep state. They might say, I don't love this or that about him, but he's for all of us. He didn't take a paycheck while he was there. And he didn't take a bribe like Joe Biden. And yes, there's been new recent evidence that Joe Biden has taken quite a lot of bribes from foreign countries. Another reason why we're seeing minorities move to the Republican Party is crime. We saw the world explode in a lot of ways. Let's say we were a couple months into COVID and they decided that the by large mansions, Black Lives Matter organization, the cultural Marxists, and by the way, early on their website, they said we're cultural Marxists, so you can claim something different. But they set the world, or at least our little portion of the world, all of those inner cities on fire. And the Democratic politicians that were in charge of those cities decided, oh, well, it's okay. You can attack the police. We can move to defund the police. You can loot, burn, and steal. It's all okay. Our vice president, Kamala Harris, the do nothing on the border, kind of just do nothing. But doesn't everybody love a yellow school bus? Kamala Harris. She set up a fund. As soon as BLM protests started happening, police were arresting some of them. She set up a fund to get them out of jail so they could get back on the streets, so they could get back to looting, burning, and stealing. There was her priority. It's the only thing that she seems to, I'm aware of, that she's done since she's been vice president. That's kind of scary. Well, and talked about yellow school buses. And everybody loves a yellow school bus. Let's go ahead and take a break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Okay, we're just going to roll right back into it. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, also on 102.3 FM, plus a whole bunch of places you can find us on social media. So I hope, I don't only hope, it's in my prayers that this message reaches as many people as possible. We were just talking a little bit about how here's an opportunity, how Republican minorities, or minorities are becoming Republican. I think it's because of crime. I think it's because of safety. And people are also just absolutely sick of the lack of accountability. Crime should be crime. You can't just come in and steal my stuff. But if, from AOC's perspective, she likes to say things like, well, you value your stuff more than that person's life. Well, in response, I think if you're coming in and I don't know what you're doing and you break into my house, well, I'm going to respond. And it's not going to be good. And I do believe that, particularly here in Commie, California, Gavin Newsom decided it was a good idea that if you only steal $900 worth of stuff, well, if you're poor and you lose $900 worth of stuff, that's a big deal. But if you only steal $900 worth of stuff, by the way, they can steal that $900 as many times in a day as they're motivated to do. So he signed this bill that made it so that if it's $900, and again, you could steal $900 for 15 times in a day, it's only a misdemeanor. A little slap on the wrist. Cops don't even really want to respond because they know you're going to be back out before they finish the paperwork. Well, inner cities are tired of that because it's worse in the inner cities. It's a little better in the city I'm currently sitting in. Thank you, Clovis. Thank you to all of the city council members, even the one I don't like. I'm still got to say thank you because generally they all support the cops. And our cops at least address the problem. They don't have all the tools they need to actually have penalties. But they are trying to nip any problem in the butt, and that there's a cop's presence. It's not like there aren't significant cops. I love telling this story. I live in a little tiny cul-de-sac in Clovis, California. And my neighbor had an idiot kid. This neighbor's since moved out of town. Out of state. But she had an idiot kid, and he had a failure to show up in court. Failure to appear on a drunk driving charge. Now, that's not smart, but I don't know that he was necessarily an all bad kid. He had some problems and didn't deal with drugs and alcohol real well. So I'm driving into my cul-de-sac and I'm like, oh my God, something serious is going on, because here are 9 cop cars and 10 cops. I drive in, I'm like, can I park here? What's going on? Figuring they were probably going to tell me, you got to go find something else to do for a while. They're like, no. When we're not busy, show up in force in Clovis so that we don't have any problems. And everybody tells the story and talks about it. And it keeps a lot of crime out of Clovis. No, they let me park in my driveway, which was literally next door to the kid they were serving. There's no problem. They just took him in. There's no problem whatsoever. And they didn't expect a problem. And I talked to one of the cops for, probably 15 minutes. And we're just chatting. He had no problem. He wasn't worried at all. They were making a statement. And they want people to know that they're ready to act. Now, that's a huge deal. So they're trying to set up a system of accountability. We have some demographic shifts. These are all moments of hope. People are moving to red states. Now, it leaves a place like here in California. It leaves us in a little bit of a lurch, but it means that the states that are red are getting redder. But people are also moving within their state. They're moving to red areas. Because, let's face it, places like San Francisco, they're nuts. 2.6 million people have moved within their state to red areas. People are looking to be saved from this insanity, from this country that, you can barely recognize, especially if you go to the inner city. Now, it's not just us that are shifting around the world. If we were to look at down under, Australia just shot down a big change to their constitution because they didn't trust the politicians with new powers. That's cool. New Zealand, during most of COVID, was run by Jessica Ardern. I think I'm getting her name pronounced right. She was their prime minister. She was a woke leftist, as woke as it gets. She was like the poster child, kind of like Gavin Newsom or Justin Trudeau. And she's gone. And now there's a center-right government. Around Europe, the Dutch, Sweden, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Hungary, Poland, Finland, Greece, all of them have center-right governments in the last 2 years. Germany just had huge shift towards ADL, which is a center-right party. France looks like it's going to go center-right. Canada, the strength of the Conservative Party is growing. And maybe blackface Justin Trudeau will be gone. Now, you realize that on Canadian radio, I couldn't say blackface Justin Trudeau, even though it's absolutely a fact, because now he's decided he needs to censor the internet because he's a man that's very proud of China and looks to them as a hero. That should tell you a lot about who Justin Trudeau is. Look, woke movies are failing. So we get back Woke movies are absolutely failing. Elemental with Disney. It was a cartoon about, I don't know, I'm not going to bother to watch it, but it had a non-binary character because that's what we need to focus on with kids. Lowest opening Disney has ever had when you adjust for inflation. That's cool. People aren't putting up with it. That's a moment of hope. We also had some movies that did pretty well that helped wake people up. Dinesh D'Souza, he did 2,000 Mules. Well, that's helping shift the culture. What about the movie he just put out, Police State? That yes, it talks about problems, but he wouldn't have been able to make that movie if we were truly fully in a police state. Instead, we're on the verge. We have a republic. Can we keep it? I thoroughly believe we can. And the big one, as far as movies, Sound of Freedom. Here it was, this little independent movie that was this huge box office success, and it wasn't all about, I don't know, getting some, or it was stopping evil people from trying to get some from kids. In other words, it wasn't this great, fun, upbeat, action-adventure type of movie. It was serious, and it was this huge box office hit that shifted people's perspectives. Same thing's happening in the music industry. You're hearing more and more patriotic songs since Gibberin' Joe was in office. We're going to go ahead and lead out with one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite artists, Tom MacDonald. Love that song. It eagerly embraces American freedom. It eagerly embraces patriotism. Folks, there is hope, but you need to get involved. Yes, we are on a precipice. Yes, could we go the wrong way? Yep. But I think that there is absolutely things that energize me about this country. Find the hope, get involved, make a difference. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town.